And now joining us here on the Bear Report podcast to get to know a fellow rookie here for the Chicago Bears draft class, we have Gabe DeArmond of PowerMizzou.com. He's a publisher, does a great job covering Missouri, and he's going to talk to us today a little bit about Luther Burden III, the second-round pick for the Chicago Bears, and lots of excitement surrounding him. First off, man, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
No problem, Zach. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, so, let's get into it. Burden was recruited to Oklahoma, I believe committed to Oklahoma, would have been the same time as Caleb Williams. Flips to Missouri, in-state, right there, East St. Louis, I'd say. What was that like for Missouri? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he is the highest rated recruit to go to Missouri, or one of.
Yeah, one of. They had back in 2012, they got Dorial Green Beckham, who was the number one recruit in the country. So that's a difficult record to ever break. It can only be tied.
Okay.
But no, Luther's the biggest deal around here in recruiting in quite a few years. And that was, he committed to Oklahoma, and he did it so early. It was before the start of his junior year that he committed. And so, it was kind of this, well, that's a bummer, but at least, early, all that. And then kind of that next summer, or even kind of that spring, rumor started to come out that, hey, maybe he was going to look around. He decommitted. I don't remember officially when it was, but then I think it was October of his senior year that he had an announcement. We actually went and we streamed it live, and I've been doing this for 22 years, and live streaming and stuff has not been around that entire time, but of everything we've ever done, nothing else has ever gotten a fraction of the audience. We had 8,000 people online watching Luther Burden's announcement. It was during COVID, and most of it was fans of other teams on there personally insulting me, because you know what it's like being on the internet. But it was a huge deal for Missouri, and it was really Eli Drinkwitz. It kind of established him here because Luther was the kid that I covered the first game of his senior year in high school, and there were 8 or 9 Division I players on the field that night.
Yeah.
And like Luther was the one that the rest of them all wanted to be Luther Burden. Like there was the level of Division I player, and then he was at that next level. Everybody knew who he was, and really that hasn't slowed down in the last 3 years.
I believe was that when East St. Louis did he ever play when they played like IMG or any of those big programs?
Yeah, he did play in a game that was on national television out in I want to say it was maybe Bosco out in California.
Might have been
the game I went to, they played a school called Christian Brothers College, which was the state champ in the biggest class in the state of Missouri. But Luther only spent 1 year at East St. Louis. He spent his first 3 years at Cardinal Ritter High School on the Missouri side of the state line. He went to East St. Louis for his senior year because it allowed him classwork wise to graduate early and enroll for spring football wherever he was going to go. So that's why he played his last year over on the east side.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So he, in-state, you can say he's an in-state recruit because I've been in that area. It's literally right over the bridge. So it's literally right there. I do remember seeing the hype around Luther Burden as a top recruit in Missouri, getting him and and kind of, I'd say, changing that program, getting him back on track. What, I guess, expectations had to be high for him, being highly rated. What was it kind of like that first year at Missouri?
The first year he only had about 400 receiving yards, and it was just a reminder that, and I think next year for Bears fans could be similar, right? Okay. When you jump up a level, it takes a minute. You go from East St. Louis High School, where Luther's probably the best player in every game he plays, to you're in the SEC, and there are some other Luther Burdens on these teams. You're playing Alabama and Georgia and, now Texas and Oklahoma, not at that time, but, some of these schools where, hey, you might line up across from a guy that actually sometimes can cover you one-on-one. And that probably wasn't the case at all in high school. So the first year was, I think, probably a little underwhelming for Missouri fans, but what they did see, I want to say I don't have the stats in front of me. I want to say he scored 9 touchdowns that year. Okay. Like if Luther got the ball in his hands, and this is his superpower, right? You get the ball in his hands, he is very difficult to tackle. I mean, that game I covered his senior year, when you do what I do, you go and you're covering this one kid, you're not really covering the game, and you go, man, I hope he does something, right? And Middle of the second quarter, Luther hasn't touched the ball, and I'm thinking, well, I need something. He drops back to field a punt. First time he's touched the ball all night, 82 yards for a touchdown. He had the ball in his hands, I think, 8 times that night. He scored twice, had a 2-point conversion, went out of bounds like 3 times. Like, I don't think he was ever tackled in the field.
Wow.
That's his biggest strength as a football player is he is very, very elusive and tough to bring down.
Is that, the yards after catch? We hear that a lot, the yak, and you have to have that at the NFL level. It seems like he has that. Is that more quickness, speed, elusiveness, like you said, maybe jukes, things like that, or is it kind of just a combination of all of it?
Yeah, I mean, like he's not slow, right?
Yeah.
He ran, I forget, 4.4 something, 4.41, 4.42, maybe at the combine. So he's not slow, but he's not, Tyreek Hill, Xavier Worthy, just line up and run past everybody. It is more acceleration and elusiveness. I mean, he has moves that, the first guy doesn't bring him down. I mean, he's got kind of point guard moves, right? Like all of a sudden you think you're there in the crossover and you're standing watching him run away. So you get the ball in his hands, whether it's behind the line of scrum, doesn't matter. Just get him the ball, and very few guys that I watched play tackle him one-on-one in the open field.
Wow. And it wasn't only as a receiver too. I believe he returned punts. Did he return kicks too, or?
No, he returned punts, and the interesting thing is he really wasn't all that good at it.
Oh, okay.
He ran one back his freshman year, but from day one, and he did this in high school, Luther would always let the punt bounce, and he would pick it up, and that drives coaches crazy, right? They're like, no, because A, it's risky, and B, you might lose us 15 yards. And they could never completely break him of that habit. He ran the one back his freshman year and then never did it again. So I think he could do it, but it's going to take a little bit of coaching and change for that to be a part of it.
Yeah, I asked because, I think the Bears, they did sign, Devin Duvernay. They have a couple of guys that can return punts. I don't think they're going to ask him right away, but they in training camp last year, they had Roma Dunze out of Washington, fielding punts. So it kind of makes sense, as a rookie, you kind of have to earn, those reps. Looking at his second season, 1,200 yards, over 1,200 yards receiving. I think he had 8 or 9 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. He took off, and I think he kind of went in that national spotlight. And I remember looking at Missouri, and I want to say they're playing at Georgia, and they probably had him on the ropes that year. And he took off. What was that year like, not only for Luther, but Missouri, and how he contributed to their success, kind of getting back on the national stage?
Yeah, that was everything they hoped could happen when he committed happened that year.
Okay.
Right? It was not only the individual success. They had a kid in the backfield named Cody Schrader who had, school record rushing yards, went from a Division II transfer or an FCS transfer to 8th in the final Heisman balloting and all that. And really the odd part of that season was it was this unknown Cody Schrader who was actually kind of the face of the program and not Luther Burden, right? But he had a phenomenal season, no question. It was a huge part of what they did. They won 11 games, beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, started the next season with like college football playoff hopes. And then last year, both personally and team-wise, kind of ended up falling a little bit short of what everybody had hoped.
What happened there? Because I do remember Missouri having that hype. They're kind of like the pick that I think Arizona State maybe turned into, or one of those schools. What kind of happened with Luther and Missouri in general? If you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, it was a lot of things, right? And I think one of them contributes to why he was there for the Bears to take it, number 39. Yeah. But the first part is Missouri's quarterback play was average. Brady Cook he's a great story. I said on one of our shows earlier this week, he's the toughest player to assess that I've ever covered because he really wasn't that good at all until like you had to have it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, he was amazing. Like he just, when it came down to we need a play to win a game, he usually made it. But the reason they had to have that play to win a game is because he was like a very average quarterback. I mean, there was a tape that was put out of Luther Burden 3-4 weeks before the draft. I retweeted it at one point, and you watch the tape. It was 5.5 minutes, and you go, "There's only like 2 of those throws where he was covered, and a lot of them he doesn't get the ball, or it's not completed. The second thing is, look, the offensive coordinator takes some responsibility. He ran a few snaps at Wildcat in the first game of his career, and we never saw it again. And we kept saying, just why? Like, give him the football, right? He had 30 or 40 fewer targets last year than he did the year before. And I don't think that is all because he was double covered, because when Missouri had to have a play, they went to Luther Burden. He had a game-winning touchdown catch in overtime against Vanderbilt. 2 years ago, he had a 4th and 17 catch to keep alive a game-winning drive against Florida. He had a 4th down touchdown catch that put them ahead of South Carolina with 2 minutes left to go. Like, when they had to have it, Brady Cook was throwing the ball to Luther Burden. So it made you wonder kind of why it didn't happen. Now, the part that Luther's responsible for, he didn't handle it very well.
Okay.
Nationally televised game against Texas A&M, they got absolutely blown out. Everyone on the team played terribly. And it was like they had a Luther Burden camera on the sidelines. And there's no other way to say it other than he was pouting. Yeah. And it was an issue. And Missouri fans saw it. And the TV people talked about it. The national media saw it. And the NFL coaches saw it, right? Yeah. And so I think that became a part of, okay, so you didn't have this great year, but like later in the year, he catches a 2-point conversion to ice the Arkansas game in the last game of the regular season. And like Missouri's all fired up, and Luther just kind of didn't really celebrate with everybody and went to the locker room, And so, like, are those questions unfair? Yes, probably. Like, on one hand, I can dismiss this and say, yes, he's a wide receiver. He wants the football. What else?
Yeah.
Right. On the other hand, when you are talking about NFL teams investing millions of dollars in you, these are the things that lead from being picked 19 to being picked 39 sometimes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Because, I remember last year seeing some mock drafts, he was top 10. And it was there and the talent was there. So when he was falling, we were kind of sitting there and we're like, the Bears I thought New England was going to take him, but the Bears might have a shot at him, and they took him. We got to talk to him, and you could tell he was very frustrated. I think
Luther's a good kid. Yeah. Publicly doing interviews is not ever going to be a thing he embraces and enjoys.
Okay, that makes sense. I think I saw some chatter on Twitter that he's being drafted to a situation where he's got Roma Dunze ahead of him and DJ Moore ahead of him, and they just drafted a tight end, and they have Cole Kmet. I didn't get that frustration. I got more of a sense of he kind of knew he should have been a first-round pick, or he had aspirations, and he has to sit there an extra night. And and the emotions run high. It's 10 minutes after he got drafted, and he has to talk to a media corps in Chicago we could be ruthless. Well, let's just call it how it is. So do you think, like you said, the media stuff, but do you think he's in a spot where he can handle this? I mean, Chicago's a big media market, but he has Antoine Randall as a wide receiver coach, and Luther's buddy, or I believe former teammate Jamison Williams actually texted the Bears head coach Ben Johnson's like, you guys got a dog. So do you think this is kind of a good situation for him?
I think it's great for a number of reasons. First of all, like, look, I know opinions are all over the map on Caleb Williams. Nobody is going to deny the amount of natural talent that dude.
Yeah.
If he hits his ceiling, you want to be a wide receiver with him. Number two, you mentioned Ben Johnson, right? I'm a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan. So I was angry when they drafted Patrick Mahomes because I wanted Deshaun Watson. And I say all the time, like, it's about situation as much as it is about the player, right? Like, if the Chiefs had drafted Deshaun Watson, he would be better than he is, and Patrick Mahomes would not be as good as he is in Kansas City. Now, Deshaun Watson still probably wouldn't be Patrick Mahomes, but Andy Reid, that offense. So Ben Johnson, that offense with those weapons around him, I like it. I also think, like, this is the first time that Luther Burden will ever be on a football team where it's not Luther Burden and blah, 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 blah. Right? Luther Burden and East St. Louis, Luther Burden and the Missouri Tigers. No, he's just a guy here. He's like the number 3 receiver maybe on this team. And I think that's probably great for Luther. I also think that, like, he now legitimate, like, every guy that's ever been drafted in the NFL, unless you go 1-1, says, like, nobody believed in me. Like, he can legitimately go in and say, every single team passed on the chance to take me. And I think that's good for it. Like, I think he needs to be angry and needs somebody to prove wrong. I think that'll be good for him. I love the spot. I think it's like every guy in the NFL. Hey, if he's in the right situation, he could be an all-pro. And if he's in the wrong situation, he could be out of the league in 4 years, right? Nobody ever knows, but I like it. And the best thing I saw on draft night, honestly, was I know people said the reaction, like, I don't think he looked that excited. Like, the best thing I saw on draft night was the shot where he's talking to Antoine Randall, who, first of all, he lights up. Like, he seemed very bored with the whole process until Randall got on the phone. Then he lit up. But, like, he's taken that call, and the Missouri cameras captured him. Like, you could tell he was fighting back tears and hugging his parents. That is not a side of Luther Burden we've ever seen. Like, one of the knocks was, how much does he care, right? No, you saw in that moment he cared. And I think that's big.
Yeah, I've got to talk to Randall for about 15, 20 minutes. He fired me up. He's going to get the most out of him. My final question before I let you go, and I appreciate your time. In terms of blocking, Ben Johnson's pretty much made it clear, like, if you're not going to block and you're not going to do the stuff when you don't have the football, you're not getting the football, or it's going to be tough for you to get the football. So I guess, what was that blocking like at Missouri? And when he wasn't getting the football, what was kind of the reception of him? Was he, just doing nothing? Was he, trying to make plays? How was that?
Yeah. Well, I'd say number one on the blocking, there's a reason Luther did not lead Missouri receivers in snaps, right? Okay. There were other receivers who tended to be out there a lot more when Missouri ran the ball than when he did. Now, I'm not saying he can't block.
Yeah.
It just wasn't what it is here, what he did here. And I'm always real careful to say when he wasn't getting the ball, how was it? Because, like, when I watch football games, I watch the ball, man.
Yeah.
Like, like, I can't break down the left guard. I can't tell you what the receiver who didn't get the ball was doing. But I do think one of the knocks was when he wasn't getting the ball was the full effort there. But again, this is the difference between college football and, like, Luther Burden was getting paid a lot of money to be here because he was the guy on this team. Yeah. He's going to get paid a lot of money to be in Chicago too, but not as much money as a lot of other people. And there's a lot of other dudes. Like, if he doesn't want to do those things in Chicago, Ben Johnson say, cool, I got another NFL player I can put in front of you. That wasn't going to happen here.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, I think. But hey, if you want to stick around in the league, I mean, these are the things you do, right? I would also say that I've never heard a head coach say, yeah, I don't care if my wide receiver blocks. But if you're a good enough wide receiver, I don't really think they care that much.
Yeah. I could definitely agree with that. Thanks so much for joining me. Where can everyone follow you? Anything you want to plug? Any articles, websites, podcasts, anything like that?
Yeah, just we're part of the 24/7 Sports Network, PowerMizzou.com. You can catch us PowerMizzou.com at Twitter. A lot of stuff probably about Luther over the last few weeks on our YouTube channel. I actually his senior year in high school, after he signed, I did kind of like a 7 or 8 part. We had a weekly just conversation on YouTube. And like I said, hey, I learned early that that's not necessarily Luther's favorite thing to do, right? But if fans want to get to know him a little bit more, it's Power Mizzou 247 on YouTube. And a lot of Missouri fans, I think, that are kind of becoming surrogate Bears fans, especially those maybe who were in St. Louis and now are without a team, right? They're hoping maybe they have a team to get behind here with Luther up there.
Yeah, we're always welcoming fans. It's an exciting time for us, but appreciate it so much, man. Thank you.
All right, Zach, have a good one, man.
You too.